Well, yesterday we heard the news that absenteeism among federal public servants is at an all-time high. An internal government document revealed that public servants are taking on average 18 days of sick leave a year. So why the rise in absent workers? Well, we reached out to a public servant who recently resigned from her position, but she asked not to be identified.
There's definitely no doubt that certain people were abusing some of the sick leave, but on a whole, it's actually very highly regulated. You know, once you exceed 2 days, you have to have a doctor's note. If you exceed your allotment, you have to take leave without pay. Having said that, you get sort of tired as a public servant of people focusing exhaustively on these things. The reality is that most of people in the public service are there, they're committed, they work hours of overtime, they don't get paid for it, they don't get recognition. All of my peers, and these are people who have so much to offer and so much to give, they just don't think their work matters anymore. And, you know, when you stop thinking that your work matters, you're not going to think that being at work matters as much. It does result in absenteeism. People have to look at this and say it's symptomatic of a bigger problem. They can't just say, oh, absenteeism correlates to lazy public servants. That's simply not the case. Absenteeism is correlating to a bigger problem, which is that, you know, the public service and public servants do not think that their work matters to Canadians anymore, and certainly not to, the political environment.
Well, our next guest has been following this issue closely. Larry Rousseau is the Regional Executive Vice President for the Public Service Alliance of Canada in the National Capital Region. He's in the studio with me this morning. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Robin.
You know, I'm struck by something that was said in that clip that we just heard there from an ex-public servant, that public servants don't think their work matters to Canadians anymore. Do you think that there's some truth in that?
Well, I think that she's expressing a sentiment that a lot of public servants might be thinking that the public doesn't appreciate what we do. And we have to look at the big picture. We really do, because when we see that public services are under attack, when we see programs that are being cut, such as food inspection, environmental regulation, these are things where programs where public servants have put their hearts, their careers, education into, giving to the public, serving the public. And when these programs are simply swept away for political agendas, it becomes difficult. It becomes difficult to accept. And in the workplace right now, it's very stressful because in the 90s, we had to do more with less. We were just, getting to the point where we were thinking, okay, now the government will be able to sort of start saying, okay, what can we sort of supplement now and bring back in? But instead, we're now going to do less with a whole lot less, in that even entire programs are going to be cut out. So it's very stressful. But let's get back to sick leave and in this report that everybody's talking about, because this report, that I'd like to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Why haven't you seen it?
Well, because it was a report that was supposed to come out. I think it was leaked, actually. I mean, the unions have not been, we've been consulted on the long-term disability aspect, but we haven't yet been apprised. So when we see statistics, that it's costing $1 billion a year, sick leave is a non-monetary benefit that was, it's negotiated in our collective agreements, and our members see it as such, and it is a benefit. And when you compare the public sector to the private sector, you are comparing apples to oranges, because there are very few places in the private sector that the unionized workers in the private sector still have sick leave provisions, but the non-unionized sectors have lost those things. So in the private sector, if people aren't taking sick leave, it's because they don't have it. So how can you compare, the public sector where we do have that benefit? And sick leave is something that we manage. Each employee has to manage it individually. We get 15 days a year. So the rule of thumb is that, you take about 2/3 of that, your 10 days, you let it accumulate over time, so that if you join at 25, we're young, we're healthy. By the time you're 45, never mind 55 like I am right now, when the arthritis sets in and everything. And cancer really starts hitting people in their late 40s. And when you're 50 and you've got 6 months accumulated, believe me, when the doctor gives you that bad news, you're very happy that you did accumulate it.
So I just want to recap here. So you're basically saying that public servants, they're taking more sick leave because they have it. They're not abusing the system. They're taking sick leave because it's there.
You have to look at it as a holistic approach. For example, last night, I hardly got any sleep. I do suffer from some insomnia. So, when the alarm went off at 6:30 after I fell asleep at around 5:30, I felt, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to do this? So, you have to think of sick leave as being something that helps you be more productive. If you are at a point where you are coming in with colds, I just bought a coffee this morning. There's a coffee shop next door. And, the guy who's working behind the counter, I know he doesn't have sick leave. But if he's sick this morning, flu, whatever, he's coming into work because if he doesn't come into work, he's not getting paid. Well, how much is he going to spread that around? Restaurant, hotel employees, people who don't have sick leave, they come in because they have to. In the public service, we have always recognized that you look at sick leave as something that when you are sick, you stay home so that you don't spread it to all your coworkers. This is the way public management, public health management sees the issue. We use sick leave judiciously, and there's not a day of sick leave that is not authorized by your supervisor. It's a management problem if people abuse it. Managers have to sign off on each and every single day. So if a supervisor has an employee who's abusing sick leave, and I really look skeptically at the 18 days per year, that's impossible. I mean, if I have 15 days, if you're telling me that everybody in my workplace is using 18 days, no. I think that they're mixing up the people who are on long-term disability. We do have people who pay into the disability insurance plan. We have a disability insurance plan. And if you get cancer, for example, and you have to take 3 months, 6 months off on the chemo and all of that, that's a different pot. So we can't mix things up here. I can tell you that 18 days on average for public servants of sick leave is absolute nonsense.
Right.
I'd like to see the report, and I'd like to see the statistics that are being used.
Is there anything, though, in what you've seen in this report that concerns you at all?
Well, what concerns me is that we are mixing up issues, and we are not looking at the use of sick leave. And let's look at the day-to-day use of sick leave. Okay, we have our 15 days. I can tell you that on average, I would say that about that from my experience, from the dozens, hundreds of cases that I've had to deal with, that, employees do use it judiciously. They are aware that if they let it accumulate and you save it, that one day when you really need it, you'll use it. So I think that the 18-day figure is absolutely, it's out the window.
Well, this has obviously hit a nerve with a lot of our listeners. We had some emails yesterday. Sam Boswell, in an email to Greg Weston, who broke this story, our CBC reporter, and he CC'd me on it as well. He said, in a time when public workers are under attack for even being alive, you've done nothing here but throw fuel on the fire, and lazy fuel at that. Your voice is yet another one screaming, who do these unionized workers get? Why do these unionized workers get sick time, vacation time, family time, reasonable working spaces, health insurance, and decent salaries? Instead of screaming, why do many people have to come in sick, work without a break, never see their families, work in poor conditions, lose their homes when they get cancer, and work for pennies?
Well, I mean, I couldn't say it better myself, because that's precisely the point. I cannot understand how in the private sector we are driving people to, run themselves ragged, become sick, spread disease, okay, and be an even bigger burden on our public health system. We have to look at health as a holistic thing, and really in the public service we are responsible and we are using it responsibly, and I would like to see the real statistics, not the propaganda that's being spread by some people.
Oh, okay. Well, you'd like to hear from our listeners on this, because we heard the report yesterday, Larry Rousseau's response today, and I know that there is a lot of anger out there, and in fact, people even tweeting in saying, I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. Lots of public servants out there feel that I think they're being kind of beaten up on right now. So if you agree with what Larry has to say, or maybe you're in the private sector and you have a comment on this as well, send us a tweet at Ottawa Morning, or email is good too, ottawamorning@cbc.ca. Thanks very much, Larry.
Thank you very much.
That's Larry Rousseau. He's the Regional Executive Vice President for the Public Service Alliance of Canada in the National Capital Region.